everybody. This is Chad with Reno Little Theater, and you are about to watch the second installment of my Tech Theater video, where we focused on the first part, we focused on scenic design. This next part, we're going to focus on lighting design. This was a presentation I did as a whole for OLLI, the Osher Lifelong Learning Institute. I usually do this presentation in person, but given what's going on, we did it via Zoom, so you're getting the recorded version. I hope you enjoy this little bit on lighting.
Moving forward to lighting design. Now, I generally do both at the same time. I'm scenic designing and I'm lighting designing at the same time. I started as a scenic designer before I became a lighting designer, and so you do, when you're one or the other, you often don't think about how the two interact. You do if you're really good. And what I found is when I started incorporating being a lighting designer, I was able to think more clearly about how lighting was going to impact the set designs that I was making, how it was going to change those designs, what I could do in a scenic design to help use lighting to tell the story that the director wanted to tell. And that's at the end of the day, the ultimate question. Whatever choice I'm making as a designer, is it helping to tell the story that the director wants to tell? That's the final question. If the answer is no, or not really, or maybe, then it's probably not the correct choice to make. But at any rate, moving on, lighting design. Lighting design is essentially what you see and what you don't. If no lights are on, you see nothing. And that could be intentional. Last summer, I was able to go to New York City for a day or two and saw a lot of shows, which was fantastic. And I got the extreme pleasure of going to see the most recent version of Oklahoma. And it's markedly different than any production you've ever seen. It's very modern, and while it's still kept in the same era, they didn't update it or anything like that. There's a lot of modern stuff that goes on, and I thought it was beautiful and fantastic. One of the things they did, though, is there was a scene. I don't know if how I'm sure many of you are familiar with the show. There's a scene where Curly goes to visit Judd in his smokehouse shack, and it's a very tense scene. Well, they played maybe the first 5 to 7 minutes of that in complete darkness. All you heard was the voices, and it was stunning, and it was uncomfortable, and it was fantastic. It was tense and really made us focus on what was being said, and it was beautiful. Can't do that all the time, but it was fantastic. All right, so in lighting design, nothing starts until after the set design is final. And the set design, by the way, is never final, but we fudge it sometimes. So what I need to understand as a scenic designer is that I can't really move forward with at least the totality of a lighting design until I understand the vast majority of what's happening on the stage. And so there are some things that we have to consider. Oh, look, it's my bald head again. This photo you see right here is from a production of The Exit Interview, which we did a few years back. So one of the things lighting design can do, some of the things lighting design can do, it can define space. So right here you can see that we defined a really small space on the stage, and everything else is black. We can define multiple spaces around the stage, depending on what we like, what we don't like. We can define time. So if we like the stage and it's blue, we kind of know that it's at nighttime or underwater, but probably nighttime. If it's bright and cheery and incandescent-ish, then maybe it's daytime, mid-afternoon, that sort of thing. We can define mood. So we can change the way we are encouraging an audience to feel if we change a particular light as far as its color or hue. We can define transitions. The easiest one is a blackout. If a scene ends and we black out, you know that scene has probably ended, and then lights come back up and we've got a transition, whatever that might be. But there are other things we can do that without a blackout. We can change color, we can change intensity, and that might also tell us that there's a transition happening. So one of the things, if I've gotten a set design and I know essentially what I'm trying to light, what I need to then do is I need to understand what the director envisions as far as lighting goes, and then also how we're going to program those lights so that it runs smoothly through a show. We do that with a paper tech. This is our paper tech form. So we have cues. This paper tech form is actually for lighting, sound, and video or media, if we have that as well. So down the left-hand side, you'll see cue number, and we'll go L1 for our first lighting cue. S is for sound, and then I do V for video. We have to know what page it's on in the script. If there's a particular count to it, a count might be 0, which we call a bump, or it might be a slow fade, which might be a count of 7 or 8. Or something in between. And then the description. And the description tells me, as well as the stage manager, because they have to know everything, but it tells me what is supposed to happen in that particular cue. So L1 might be house lights at full, psych 50% at blue, and stage warmers. And it might be that simple. Or it might describe some effect that has to happen. So if we need a lightning effect, it'll say lightning effect, or sometimes they'll just put moody. And so I have to figure out essentially what that mood is. Then I start to build a lighting plot. And so a lighting plot shows you your lighting grid, which is all of those pipes. We have a static lighting grid, which means that all of our pipes are above the stage and that's where they stay. Some lighting pipes, usually in proscenium stages, they move up and down. And so you can hang all your instruments standing on the ground. You can rough focus them that way as well. Put the lights back up on the pipe, see how everything lands, and then either bring the pipe in and out to make adjustments or make adjustments on a ladder. We have a scissor lift we call Violet. She's my best friend. And so I go up and down on Violet and I focus the lights, or gel them or whatever. And so you can see there are some different lighting types, lighting instruments on here. The long ones are called source 4s, LECOs. The smaller ones that look like little pucks, those are my LED slim pars. They're from Chauvet. And we have a bunch of other instruments. So I start laying this out, where I'm going to hang the lights, how they're going to focus. I might also put some descriptors in there, like maybe I want a particular degree barrel on source 4. So I might say 36 degree or 50 degree or 19 degree, or I might want a gobo in there. If you don't know what a gobo is a little disc. It's often made out of metal and it has a cutout in it, and you put that inside the light and then the light projects that image onto the stage, or texture onto the stage. Or I might gel it. A gel is a colored piece of cellophane that you stick in a frame and you put it on the front of the source 4. So I might have those descriptors in there. I might also say where it's going to be pointed at, like upstage left door, or kitchen, or hallway, or special downstage center special, that sort of thing. So then the hang. So we get to actually the set is maybe partially completed in construction. And I can get on Violet and I can start hanging these lights. and getting them all wired together so we can start programming. The hang, what instruments are we hanging and where are we hanging them? So here you see, this is the set for Radium Girls, which we did several years ago. And you can see some of the lights. I've got some lights on the floor. I've got psych lights against our back sight, which is that big red thing right now, but it's actually a natural color. And then you can see a few other lights in the hang there, helping to define the set and creating these fantastic shadows on the ground. And then we go into programming. I use a software program. All of our tech is software based here at Reno Little Theater. I use a program called CAMSYS. And so this allows me the ability to, with a computer, that's a little laptop that I use, I sit and I can control all of my lights. I can control intensity. I can control color. If it's a moving light, I can control where that moves, how fast it moves. I can control things like strobing and all those things. And this is what I do is I tell the lights what to do, and then I record that as a cue. So like L1 in our paper tech. And I'll record that as L1. And then all of our board op, that our board op then has to do is press one button. They just hit the go button and it goes to the next cue. And then they wait for the time in the script or when the stage manager tells them it's time to play cue 2, and then they hit go, and that's it. That's different than what has happened for a long time in theatrical lighting. A lot of times there were mixers and these sliders. You can see down in the bottom of the screen, there are virtual sliders that go up and down. A lot of times board ops had to operate those and understand lighting cues that way. They don't have to do that anymore. And so that's essentially lighting design. We've programmed the show. The stage manager goes in. Our stage manager, the way we run, is also our sound board op and our lighting board op, and they just press 2 buttons. That's all they do. One for the lights, one for the sound. That's it. And then our show is up and running and hopefully beautiful. Some of the other production elements I just wanted to quickly talk about. We have sound design. Sound design can be in-show music, pre-show music, intermission music, post-show music, transition music. It's also oftentimes cues that may happen, like a car coming up the driveway, you might hear that, or I don't know, dogs barking or something like that. All of that is part of sound design. Props, properties are anything that an actor holds on stage. And then there's a lot of argument about, there's some gray area if it's a scarf and they are holding it and they never put it on, then it's a prop. But if it's a scarf and they wear it as they walk on stage, then it's a costume. And there are some scenery things too. What's the set production department's problem and what is a properties department's problem? It all gets figured out in the end, but, and then costumes, you know, that's pretty obvious, and they design those and maybe they build them, maybe they source them from someplace else. We actually also rent costumes. The Oregon Shakespeare Festival has a fantastic costume house, and we rent from them about once a season, sometimes twice a season, depending on the show and if it's something we can build ourselves or have in stock or not. You'll see this little cartoon down here, same one we had from the stage manager series called Q to Q Comics. So this tells a lot of what we do. The props gal is showing the director, hey, we've got this desk. And he says, I wish it was mahogany. And she says, oh, that's no problem. I'll just paint it to look like mahogany. You can do that. Paint wood to look like other wood. Yeah, it's like half of what I do, which is actually true. a lot of what I do as a scenic painter or a props painter is painting wood to look like different kinds of wood. That's what happens. We get into Tech Week. Tech Week is misrepresented as Hell Week, a lot of people call it. Tech Week is the time, and it's a bit of a misnomer for us because we spend slightly more than a week in our space. But it's the time, the week or 2 weeks right before a show opens. And that's when all of the elements are coming together. The actors have been rehearsing for 6 weeks or so, and the set has been built for a few days. We actually, we don't have a full shop here at Reno Little Theater. So most of the time we have to wait until whatever is before a show moves out and the stage is clear before we can start building the next set. We usually get about 3 days before actors are meant to be on the stage to use the set. That's what we have to make the set functional and representational. It doesn't certainly have to be finished. The details don't have to be on, but it has to be safe for the actors to walk on. Probably we've got walls up, probably we've got doors in, platforms up, that sort of thing, stairs in. And then it's another, usually about 10 days or so before we have an audience in. So I get about 12 to 14 days from essentially 0 to 100 to finish a set. And then lighting's coming in and props are coming in and sound, costumes. It's a bit of a jumble for a little bit of time. Tech Week may include load-in, so sets, props, costumes, that sort of thing. We have careful jockeying of time for set crew and lighting crew. Like I said, we use a big scissor lift pilot to get to our lights. So if things are happening on the stage, it's difficult to maneuver around. Also, a lot of times when we're working on lights, we need the stage black, dark, so that we can focus things properly. We know where a particular instrument is looking at, and that takes darkness. So we got to jockey those things. We have dry tech where I look at all of the lighting and making sure that it's lighting things properly, that cues are going correctly. We do a cue to cue where we go for, it's mostly just lights. We're showing the actors and the director how the transition from light cue to light cue is going, and making sure people are safe on stage that way. We do a full tech run where we incorporate all of the tech elements, sound and effects if we have those, and media and all those things. And then dress rehearsals where we're running essentially in show conditions as if there was an audience there. And then we have preview. We have preview 2 nights before we actually open, and that is media is there. And then we also actually have a couple of high school groups that come to watch the show. They give us some feedback, and we still have a couple of days to figure out if there are some things that need changing. For both the technicians and the actors, this is the most hectic part of a show, as we're forced to do a massive amount of work getting timing of cues correct, often without having seen scenes in their entirety. So a lot of times we're working blind to figure out how things are going to work until this moment, until, you know, the Tuesday before we open a show and we've got all the tech elements together. Then we see how it works and we go, oh my gosh, that's beautiful, or oh my gosh, we have to change everything. It happens both ways.
I hope you enjoyed that video on lighting design from me at Reno Little Theater. And if you did, please feel free to share it, like it through YouTube or Facebook or Instagram or Twitter or wherever you have found this video. And I hope that you'll continue to watch the rest of our videos. Thanks a lot. Take care.